Antwan with another episode of Out and Up, where we encourage young athletes to achieve their very best outside of the game. And like every show, we're blessed to have another awesome guest, and y'all know how I do. I'm gonna go ahead and let him introduce himself.
How y'all doing? It's Antwan Rogers Jr. I am a grad assistant coach at Albright College. I'm a safeties coach. Proud to be here. Can't wait to see how this thing goes. Let's have it. Let's have a good one.
All right, you ready to get into the questions, man?
Oh, for sure. Let's do it.
All right. So you all that have joined us, it's been about 2 years. It actually was January sometime. 2022. We actually did an episode together. I think I had it titled like as the intermission. I think it may have been in between seasons. But I was blessed to have my son on another episode. And since then, life has just, been a blessing for him, and he's been able to do some things on the football end, and then God has blessed them in some other areas since. And so we're just going to catch up with them. And we're going to get into some great conversation. We're going to be very transparent about our relationship over the years. Because anybody that knows me know I believe in using the things that I've been blessed to make it through to help others. So we're going to dive in some great conversation, and just hope that, like every show, you'll take this information, share it with others. But we're gonna go ahead and get into the questions, man. So, man, like I said, Ju, it's been since 2022. We had the last episode. You recently just finished your last semester and completing the work you needed to complete so that you can, you know, move on to another level. So, finishing up in this past December, I think it was, has placed you in a position to do what? What's coming up for you right around the corner?
I'll be graduating and finally walk across the stage May 12th. And like I said earlier, I'm currently grad assistant coach. So I've had the opportunity to, even before walking across the stage, be blessed with the opportunity of having a job in a sport that I love. So it doesn't even necessarily feel like a job, just being around a sport I love, just having that fun, being able to change lives in a different light.
All right, all right. So about to graduate and receive what degree are you going to be receiving?
So I actually have the degree, but I haven't walked across the stage. But I have my degree in my bachelor's in business administration with a track and management. So yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, like I said, man, it's been a couple years, man, and just talk a little bit about the last couple years of football. Our last interview would have been post, the high point of COVID. Still was, some restrictions going on, but how did things end for you in your last couple years, man?
So my freshman year, I ended up getting hurt. I came in as an offensive player uh, because we were low in numbers on the defensive side. I switched to corner, played a little bit of safety, got a new defensive coordinator, ended up playing a little bit of outside linebacker, and I ended up staying there for up until my junior year or so. Ended up getting a new head coach. Uh, so I saw that as an opportunity to finally get back to the offensive side of the ball. Didn't get to go where I wanted to as far as playing running back because we were expecting some big numbers back at running back as far as who was there, and those are some guys who have contributed for us throughout the years. So I ended up going to receiver my senior year, and then my COVID year, uh, which is that extra semester I took. Uh, Things didn't go the way we expected them to or we planned them to, but nothing in life really does. So record wise, it didn't show who we were as a team. Just had a lot of um, not necessarily guys, but just we just wasn't a team. We didn't play like a team. And sadly, like I worked out the hardest I possibly could have in preparation for the season. My last year, that COVID year, ended up separating my shoulder in a scrimmage, maybe like my last series. Missed 2 games there, came back probably earlier than I should have. I didn't re-injure myself there, but I ended up taking a knee to my calf, ended up resulting in a contusion. Was out for another few games. So all around, was I wouldn't say is the last 2 years I expected, not being able to contribute in the ways that I know I could have. But just being able to have that opportunity to say I got to complete those 4 years of football was just something I was blessed with. So I was beyond grateful to have those 2 years to be able to play with guys I've came in with and finished those years up with them.
That's good. That's good. So let's just kind of review those years that you've been at Albright. I always love to give information to the young athlete. You talking to the young athlete that's and of course it's tied into what you're currently doing, which we'll get into, but you're talking to the young athlete. You have the opportunity to cross paths with a young athlete finishing up his senior year, or maybe it's post the season and he's getting ready and preparing for college. What are some things on the body in from a physical standpoint you would encourage the young athlete to do to really strengthen their body to get ready for that next level of football?
Now, the main thing is obviously, like you said, strengthening your body, putting in all that work. As much as you prepare, you'll never be truly ready. But as far as making sure your body's in the right condition, it needs to be constantly running, having a steady basis of lifting and getting on the field, doing your positional work and conditioning work, but also giving your body that necessary rest. Because if you constantly put that tension on your body, um, you're not going to have the energy and your body's not going to be ready to produce when it does come time for camp. But also making sure you're putting the right stuff into your body. If you treat your body right, it's going to treat you right. Um, but the biggest thing of them all is when you are putting that on that muscle that you need to get ready for camp, or when you are running as much as you need to be running for conditioning purposes and positional purposes to get ready for camp. Make sure you're stretching. Stretching is probably the biggest thing that no one really tells you. Making sure your body is able to have that elasticity when you are putting in uncomfortable positions or when you are making tackles or getting tackled. So that way, when you do hyperextend your leg, it's not resulting in career-ending injuries and stuff like that.
All right, all right. So from academic standpoint, just always love to cover it to get the viewpoint of every person that we have on the show. Like, what are some things in preparation, or even as you transition, that the young athlete needs to be prepared for with the busyness of the workouts on the college level, along with making sure you prioritize your education.
I mean, it's that in itself. It's prioritizing and making sure you are putting everything necessary, all your responsibilities first, because my school, we only have 4 classes a semester. And having all that time in the world, it gets easy to get wrapped up in all that free time and not necessarily putting the things you need to first. You have all the time in the world to do what you want to do, but it's all in importance uh, to do what you need to do first. Making sure you are getting that homework done when you aren't in football or you aren't in your sport. Making sure you're watching that film, using that free time responsibly, and not just wasting it away, because in the end you're going to have those moments where you look back and all the time you spent at your school playing your sport, and you're going to be like, I didn't do everything I needed to do. I didn't do everything in my power to position myself in the best place possible to excel and be the best, very, very, very best version of myself, and being able to contribute and do everything I could for the team. And that's all that comes with that opportunity of being able to play sport at a higher level. Like like I said, you have all the time in the world, and you have the choice to make whether you're gonna put social life before school and football, or social life and football before school. But the main aspect of it is you're a student athlete. So making sure you're taking care of that part first, because if you ineligible, you can't get on the field and do anything anyway. So making sure you're putting your academics first and making sure, yeah, I can make time for social life and party all the time, or I can excel in my classes, or I can put in extra work on the field, or I could take care of my body, or I can watch more film just to make sure I'm doing everything in my power to make sure I get on the field, and it's making it hard for coaches to keep me off the field or the court or whatever respective playing field you are in. So just making sure it's hard for coaches to keep you off, because if you somebody who is constantly doing the wrong things, not prioritizing your life and your academics and your athletics first, coach is gonna feel like they can't trust you. If you're not showing up on time to certain things and you missing meetings, coach is gonna be like, He don't take us serious, so why should we take him serious or her serious? If you showing him on a daily basis you can't be trusted, how you expect them to put you on the field or the court to be able to help the team? Because if you're not willing to do everything in your power to help the team, because overall, like your GPA affects the team GPA, and overall as a team, you trying to how to have the highest GPA at the school because that's a good representation of the program, saying that you're able to not only hold on to kids because they're doing everything in the classes. That's a good recruiting piece for parents to bring people in to make the team even better. But if you're not able to do that, if you're not able to help the team in those ways, coach is not going to care if you want to get on the field if you're not showing them off the field that you're willing to do everything necessary.
Right. Right. So I want to ask you, went through the transition of coaching, and it's something that on the high school level it happens, but not as often as maybe you may see. And of course, it's on a different level in college. Like, what was that transition getting used to a different leader as far as the coach on the team? Like, did you go through some transitions as far as just like having to reestablish who you are to coaches? Were you all able to keep some coaches on that kind of knew you as a player, or was it introducing yourself all over again?
Throughout my whole college experience, it was just a matter of constant coaching change. For my freshman year, we had even coming in, it was a big difference because I came in, I was a recruit, meeting some coaches who seemed like great dudes, and I come here, and those coaches not even here. So just having those build those relationships with certain coaches who weren't there at one point, and even then like there was coaches who did recruit me, like my recruiting coach, Coach Chance Green, he was the running backs coach. It was a blessing to have him here. Um, but yeah, he made me feel comfortable. And then as time went on, COVID happens. Seasons don't go the way that we expect them. Head coach decides to, I wouldn't say necessarily retire, but step down, and we get a new head coach. Um, but at the time, we had an interim head coach, which is one of our coaches that was already on staff. So already having that relationship with him, and then the school deciding to go a different way and getting a new head coach, it was definitely a shift and having to prove myself all over again because these guys don't know who I am. Um, it's not necessarily proving myself, but just continually being the good dude that the coaches believed in when I first came in, and just constantly showing on and off the field who I am as a leader, as a competitor, just constantly going out and competing and being the best version of myself and showing them I can help this team any way they need me to. And that's that was the biggest piece, just continually being myself, not letting the change me, and just continually going out there and being who God has called me to be, and being able to shine my light on and off the field.
All right. So I would consider that to be, somewhat, an adversity that many players have to deal with. And so I ask you, what's some I guess advice you can give a young athlete and just being always prepared and kind of on their toes because I'm sure adversity like that, whether it's, injuries to other players and having to step up, whether it's coaching changes, offensive changes, defensive change, play call changes, whatever it may be, I'm sure you face things like that pretty regularly on the college end. So what kind of advice, from your experience would you give the young athlete on just being prepared to have to face those type of adversities?
One of the biggest things is having the ability to adapt and adjust on the fly. Um, Another thing is being able to embrace uncomfortable. A lot of change is very much uncomfortable, and it kind of ties into being able to adapt and adjust. If you're someone who's closed-minded to change, then when change happens, you're going to be in a space where you freeze under that change, and you're not able to continually grow. But when you embrace change, you embrace everything you experience with an open mind. You're more willing to grow with the change rather than resisting against the change. Because the more you resist against changes like coaches, then the more defiant you seem and the more selfish you seem. So that's another point. Being selfless, you're gonna face adversity, and you're gonna have coaches who may not know you when that coaching change does happen, and being having that selflessness and being willing and able to build those relationships for the sake of the team. You may not like the coach, you may like them, but those moments when you don't like a coach, being able to still be who you are in those moments of adversity is going to help the team. And adversity like injuries, having that selflessness and being a team player, being able to still play a certain type of role that's going to help the team. Maybe you're not able to play, but being a leader and being able to still coach up guys who may be under you in your position and being able to help them get in the best position to be prepared to get on the field or the court. It's just a sign that you're willing to do everything possible, and that's a good sign for coaches. That though this person can't play right now, they're helping the team the best way they can and not being all moody and being negative and holding back the team from growing. Because if you're one of those people, even when you do come back, they're gonna try and find someone else that can replace you, who may not be as talented, but they're not gonna be the person that's gonna hold back the team from growing and reaching the goals that the team has for each other. And overall, you don't want somebody who's gonna be negative. That's gonna bring down the morale of a team. I've seen it since I've been here. Coaches dismiss people from the team because they're not boosting the morale of the team. They're being selfish and they're having those outbursts where they're holding people back. And it's been recent. It's been in the past. Like overall, you just see how it affects a team when there's guys who are me oriented rather than we oriented.
Got you, got you. I want to ask, with all those different, changes that go on, so often we see players who it can change their whole, mindset, where the grades are drop, where their performance continues to drop. But I know as being your father, you were able to stay driven, even, when the seasons weren't the best, when there was changes as far as coaching staff, you maintain, staying consistent. Like, what was it that drove you and kept you focused throughout any of those adversities that you went through during your college career?
I'm not gonna lie. It's definitely been a very, very hard journey. And it wasn't easy. Like by far, I can account different moments where I had my moments and just soaking in what I had going on or lack thereof of playing time or lack thereof of being able to play because of injuries. But I had to remember my why and not only why I was here, but all the people that have helped me get here and um why do I want to push through? Like you have to ask yourself in those moments, why am I even here? Like you have to think on all the moments of the sacrifices you made to get to where you are, all the people that have helped you get to where you are. And then it was just little moments where you like I had a recent moment where I think I was injured at one point and my mom tells me how a freshman's mom reached out to her via email, and I guess it was because of emails parents needed for our fundraiser. And a freshman's mom reached out to her saying, "Your son has made such a difference in my child's life." So it's like little moments like that where you see people who look up to you. It's just another reason why I knew I couldn't give up. And just even in that, I know the person I want to be. And it's never a person who gives up in the face of adversity. Adversity is going to come in different ways, whether it be loss of a family member, loss of relationships. But I never wanted to be a person who crumbles and looks back on life and regrets everything. And that's a mindset I've had to adjust. Like I've changed my perspective on losses, so to speak. Like you're gonna lose in a lot of cases. You're gonna lose friendships. You're gonna lose relationships. You're gonna lose family members to death. You're gonna lose in a competition battle. You're gonna lose in a rep, but always seeing those as growth opportunities is a perspective I've adapted, and being able to understand that everything's a growth opportunity. Everything's an opportunity to see where you could be better. Even in wins, you got to see it as a growth opportunity because you're not going to have a perfect rep every time. And even when you win, those reps aren't going to be perfect either. Just always seeing where you can critique yourself and be the best version of yourself and just all around um, trying to be better. But just to tie into the main objective of this topic is just making sure um, I was just the person I wanted to be. Like I could look at myself in the mirror and say, though I wasn't perfect, I never gave up, and that's not the person I wanted to be. down the road, being able to look back and say, dang, it got hard and I gave up, and just always think about that one moment where I gave up. But it was just all about remembering the person I looked up to. Like when I was younger, I always wanted to be in this position. So not wasting the opportunity of being in the position I always prayed for. Though it wasn't the D1 level, it was still an opportunity to play football another 4 years that wasn't guaranteed. Like a lot of people
Right.
didn't make it to this level. So having the opportunity, I wanted to make that little kid proud that I always wanted to be in this moment. I wanted to make my family proud because they sacrificed so many moments where they didn't have to invest time in me getting to practices or me getting extra workout sessions or me doing track, whatever the case was, or showing up to games. And then on top of that, I have people watching me, and I'm not even aware of those people watching me, but just knowing that people are watching to see how I react to certain situations, that was just something I couldn't let happen. And most of all, God has blessed me with this opportunity. So who am I to
Right.
waste this opportunity away when I prayed for it? God gave it to me. Now, what am I going to do with it?
Right. Right. That's good. That's good. So as we fast forward, um, your last semester is over with, and you're in a different position now. You're still connected to the Albright program, but let's just retract the story on how you ended up getting the position that you currently have now.
So, long story short, just in general, like growing up, I always wanted to play football. I got that opportunity, and I ended up hanging up my cleats. So just the idea of not being around something you've played or a sport that you love for 18 years, 18 plus years, just didn't sit right with me. I spoke with my mom, I spoke with you, um, and we came up with the idea of putting that bug in my coach's ear before like I officially left campus that if there was a grad assistant coaching position, then I'd love to take it. And when I initially mentioned to him, um, we still had a lot of coaches on staff. Like there was no open positions at the moment, but he had told me if there was any positions, then they would love to have me. So fast forward a couple months after working a graveyard shift at ShopRite, I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do, like because he hasn't reached back out yet. Um, and I just didn't know. I got a business degree right now. Business is so broad. Business management is so broad. It's such a broad field to get in. Just trying to figure out what best works for me and my skills that I've been gifted with. So I go back to take my graduation pictures, and I ended up stepping into the coach's office and seeing I knock on my head coach's office, and he just so happened to be on the phone with Coach Sean Weaver, who's one of my guys. He's over at Frostburg State right now as the assistant defensive coordinator. But yeah, my head coach Isaac Collins, they were on the phone, and he was just like, just the guy we were talking about. And I'm like, what you mean? He was like, yeah, I'm on the phone with Coach Weaver. He was like, so we have a grad assistant position open for you right now. Would you be willing to take it? And obviously have to figure out what all that looks like, all the details of what it would be. Um, my initial position was assistant special teams coordinator, just helping out our head coach Collins, and all the things that he does because he's our head coach, so he has to take good care of everything else in the program on top of being the special teams coordinator. So he's going to need help there. So I initially took my position there. Um, but then we had open DB coach position. We had some coaches leave. So a lot more positions opened up. And then on top of that, like he's a student right now, John Lighty. So he's interning with the position. Um, but when he was coming in, he felt more comfortable helping out Coach Collins in the special teams department. And so Coach Collins asked me if I wanted to be the safeties coach. I ultimately said yes because I was already on staff and I got to work with some guys I got to play against when it came to practice and stuff. So it felt like a no-brainer, just the job position in itself, being able to coach guys I just got done playing with and impact them in a different light. I spoke to my coach about this a couple weeks ago. Like I was beyond grateful for the opportunity because as a captain on the team for those 2 years that I was captain at the end of my career, um, I look back and I say I didn't do everything I could have done as a leader on that in that aspect. So having this opportunity to lead in a different light and make that difference that I didn't make as a leader, as a captain, um, it seems just like a no-brainer, just being able to make a bigger impact and having a bigger position and having those players respect you in a different way and actually take coaching points rather than having someone in their age in the same position that they're in, basically trying to demand them to do certain things, and they kind of respect you on a different level as a coach.
All right. So I want to ask, if you can think back, a lot of the questions I pose, if you're talking to the young athlete that may be in his second, third, approaching his last year, of eligibility, like what are some things you can do to prepare yourself for life outside of the sport? You were kind of at that crossroad. What's next? And I'm sure there's so many athletes that's dealing with it. Outside of those that the small percentage that are able to make it, into on a professional level. There's many young people who have played years of football just like yourself. And then you get to that crossroad where you really have to, even with a degree, have to decide what's next. Like what's some advice you give that young person in preparation? At what point would you say they need to really start locking in on preparing that? At some point, life as an athlete will possibly come to an end. How would you advise them to kind of prepare for that moment?
The biggest thing is like I tell a lot of recruits this when they come on their visits. Just putting yourself out there, like trying different things, not making the college experience a waste and just staying in your room constantly. Put yourself in uncomfortable environments where you might not normally go out or go to certain events. Just being able to make connections with people because the biggest thing in this world is connections. Like that's one thing I truly value is being able to make connections and um, truly be yourself, truly go out there and show people who you are because you never know who's going to like you, who's going to dislike you, whatever the case is. But the more you go out and you experience different people and you let people experience you, you be able to not only let them get to know you, but you get to know yourself in a way that you understand, all right, maybe this isn't the best thing for me. Maybe I don't like this. Maybe this not a career I want to be in. Because even with a degree, there's certain jobs out there that don't require a degree. So just trying and going to different events or trying different internships to see what best fits yourself and best fits your skills and abilities is something I definitely recommend. And just making sure you're getting out of your comfort zone because this adult stuff ain't easy. Like you're gonna be put in a lot of uncomfortable positions where you're not comfortable and you're not in a space of like something that's normal for you. Um, so just going out there and being okay with being uncomfortable and trying different things.
Cool, cool. So I want to ask, like, from your perspective, what do you think were some of the things that you did as a player, as a leader, to position yourself to have this opportunity? It's an opportunity that very few get, but you know, it's an opportunity that's there when you've played years on a football team. But some people don't think about those things ahead of time when it comes to their character and how they carry themselves, their personalities, their attitudes towards coaches. What are some things you look back on that you were able to do over your career that you think positioned you to be blessed to be in that position now to continue your career, maybe not as a player, but now as a coach? What do you think opened that door for those coaches to look and give you this opportunity you have today?
I mean, one it would be how I carry myself, just a high energy guy, looking to make the room bright every time I step in it, not just um, coming in and always being high energy for no reason, but just genuinely coming in with a happy energy that brightens a room when sometimes people may not be feeling the brightest and feeling the best. So always being a high energy guy and having a positive outlook on life, like no matter how things are going, you should never allow others to feel that because sometimes things are out of your control and sometimes people didn't do anything to you for them to feel that type of energy. So no matter how life is going, just having that positive outlook and letting people feel that positivity within you. Another thing will have to be just my hard work and ability. Like I can honestly say like not a lot of people say they outworked me throughout my college experience. Regardless of what position I was at, like there was moments where I slacked, of course. Like there's gonna be those moments where you look back and you're like, all right, I could have been better in this area. And that's just me being hard on myself. But just always that having that outlook on I don't care what position I'm in. I don't care how things are going for me, but I'm gonna be in the best position or I'm gonna be in the best condition possible. So that way I get on that field, or I'm gonna be the best film junkie and just always asking questions. I was at receiver asking our D line coach different hand movements so that way if a DB get their hands on me, I'm able to maneuver in certain ways and being able to make work a stick and stick and jab movements, just different ways I can be better all around. I was just That's another thing to a testament as to why I feel like I was put in this position. Also, being coachable is a big thing. Um, Understanding that you may not know everything in the world, and understanding that you may not be perfect, and always having that outlook like I'm not going to be complacent, and I'm always seeking different ways I can be better. So that's a testament to not only hard working, but always looking to find different ways to be better within yourself, and always understanding that coaches are in a position that they're in for a reason. They've coached as many years as they have for reasons. So always seeking those moments, and even then being able to take those hard coaching points, even when you may mess up a couple times and the coach start yelling at you, not taking it personal, but understanding that one, a coach may see something in you that you don't see in yourself, but because you constantly messing up, they got to get a little harder on you and try and get you to a space where they know you can be and see that potential in you. And that's something I realize as a coach myself now, just being able to get into guys where they have the best potential in the world, but they don't see it in themselves, so they're not pushing themselves as far as they can go. So they need that extra nudge. Um, Another thing would just be my willingness to learn. Like it's a part of coaching, but my ability to my ability and willingness to be a quick learner. Like I said, it's a part of being coachable, but just willing to learn new things, being open minded. Um, like I said, like you have to have open minded uh, thought process, and when things don't go your way, you have to be open minded to change, and you have to be open minded to trying to learn new things and trying to um, be all around just a good person. Um, that's another thing. I feel like I've always been a good person. Never got into any trouble off the field. Um, I've always been not necessarily a high academic person, but just making sure I'm available as far as eligibility. I haven't been done the best in taking care of my body. Sometimes things happen in football, so that's definitely an area I could have worked on more. But football happens and injuries happen. But all around, I feel like those are all the things. Though that's just a brief because we can go on and on because I feel like I've done a lot of good things. Obviously, haven't been perfect, and there's things I could have done better at. But those are just some brief examples of some things that are important as an athlete in the way you carry yourself, and the things you do and the decisions you make that coaches like. And I'm honestly the coach already told me I'm the first grad assistant from this school, and that's something he wants to continue doing. So
That's good.
I'm basically, for lack of a better term, the test dummy to see how this thing goes.
So
If you want,
you got to definitely steward that opportunity well because it could definitely open doors for others coming behind you. So that's an awesome opportunity that you've had. And so you touched real quick, about not being the best as far as grades, but even whatever happened early throughout school and everything like that. I mean, I think it's important that we highlight the highlights. And so you finished strong. And so let's talk about how you finished. I want to ask one other question after that about the sports, and then we're going to transition into to one of the other topics I talked about us covering earlier, and that's our relationship over the years. But let's talk about how you were able to finish strong.
so my true senior, well, yeah, my true senior last semester, I finished with a 3.2 GPA. And then this very last semester that finished up in December, I finished off with a 3.8 GPA, finished on the dean's list. Yeah, it was the last semester wasn't crazy hard, but just having that even during football season, having that ability and um, learning all those lessons throughout my time to prioritize and make sure all my work is done, and uh, just making sure I'm using my time management skills pretty well to make sure I got all my work done and I excelled in certain areas. Um, and that was the result, just putting in the work, and it paid off.
That's good. And one other question I want to ask before we kind of transition is the process of or the transition of now going from being a player to being a coach. Like, what has been the pros and cons with that transition?
So a big pro is like because I played on this team the last 2 years, and some of these guys I've played with, obviously we haven't had the class that I haven't played with, so I just got done playing with all these guys. So having that already genuine relationship with a lot of these guys um, has played a big role in this transition. Not necessarily having to from scratch, start fresh, but these guys already know who I am. They know I put in the work as a player, so they already have that genuine respect for me, and it's not something that's forced. And I know these guys. I know how they play. I know how they react to certain coaching points. So having that upper hand in comparison to some newer coaches and not knowing how some of these guys are, um, we already start on a level where I have respect for them. They have respect for me. I know how they are, and I know how to coach them. Uh, I feel like that's an upper hand I have. I feel like the biggest thing is being in an environment where I was once a student. All the memories I made on this campus, all the memories I made on this field, it's obviously a bittersweet moment having to hang the cleats up. So being around that, sometimes like you have a moment where you just think on all the memories. And like I said, I try not to live with regret, or I don't live with regret just because of the the perspective I have on life now. Just seeing everything as a learning opportunity, everything I didn't do as a player. I know I can encourage these guys to not make those certain mistakes that I've made, or push them in certain areas where I wish I was pushed, or don't do certain things that I've seen coaches do, and how they interact with them, how some coaches have called players out of their names at moments, or how they just treated them really bad, and not necessarily as a person, but just like a worker. Like, yeah, players are under coaches, but at the same time, they're still people at the end of the day. So knowing what buttons not to press, just out of genuine respect for a player who is a person at the end of the day. And some more cons is, like I said, I'm in an environment where I had all these memories. I've done a lot of things on this campus. I've met a lot of people and made connections. So being forced to grow in an environment where your past was has been probably the hardest thing for me. Not being able to hang out with friends I may still have on campus that I still talk to, but I'm not able to hang out with them because now I'm a staff member. And I feel like that's been the biggest part of separating realities. Like, I'm no longer a student, I'm a coach now. And that's been the biggest difficult part. And just being able to adapt with that. It hasn't been the easiest. It's still not easy. It's still hard. Those relationships aren't the same, and just having to adapt in those friendships in certain ways. And even then, like, you have to understand in those certain situations, especially in my situation, some relationships may be seasonal, like understanding when to let things go and not hold on to them more than they need to, because maybe it was just to help you transition, or maybe it was just a part of people's life, to help them transition into a certain part of their journey. And just being able to just grow in all of that and not allow it to really affect me negatively, but like I said earlier, see it as a growth opportunity to grow in certain areas where I may not have been able to in at a certain point.
Great information, man. I appreciate you offering that. And we're gonna pivot a little bit and just cover another area. I know as we talked, several weeks ago when we talked about doing this episode, I mean, you asked the question, hey, did I have an idea on what I wanted to talk about? And I didn't want this show to just be like every other show where we just talk about the athlete, what they did, in sports or in the classroom. I wanted to cover, a little bit more. And so with every show, we'll have various guests that cover subjects that are personal to them. But for us, we've been able to even, have our ups and downs as father and son.
Mhm.
And so those, of course, a lot of people watching may not all be close to the circle and know, I originally left New Jersey around 2003.
Mhm.
And so that would have been Junior would have been how old in 2003? 2 years old?
2 years, if that.
2 years, somewhere around that. One going on two. And so that was me, a young 26-year-old, at the time, trying to figure out life and made a transition, didn't take a moment to really fully think out everybody that would be affected. And so I decided to transition south. And so much of Antwan Jr.'s life, dad was not you know, in the home with them. I had relocated, and so we've had to navigate through some ups and downs. So I believe it was important. I believed it was important that we kind of be transparent because God has blessed us to grow so much in our relationship since then. It's just awesome to have the opportunities to talk to my son today about life, things I wasn't either able to do or I didn't do, as far as being there for him to help him navigate through his early adolescent and teen years. And I believe there's so many athletes and so many young people that go through the same thing. And where my son is blessed to have the opportunities he have now, there are other players or other athletes that don't or haven't been able to stay as focused as Antwan's has. So I wanted us to cover that. And so, Antwan, I guess we'll start from the beginning. I guess as far back, you're a young adult now, but as far as back as you can remember early in those years of you starting to play sports, like what was that like for you being a young athlete, old enough to know that your dad was at one point an athlete and played football 4 years in high school. Like, what was that for you not having your biological father in the home, man?
Um, Not having my father in the home, like at a young age, like you don't really realize it. Like, especially having the mother I was blessed to have. Um, Regardless if I had a stepfather at the time or in general, I had my well, I'll go back to this. I'll get back to that point, but just I always had a village, a strong village, and I'm big on it takes a village to raise a child, whether their father's present or not. It takes a strong village who is gonna always be there and support the child and all their needs, and even if they can, the wants of the child, to just to make sure they're in an environment where they feel supported and they feel valued and they have all the teachings and the proper upbringing to make sure they grow up to be young kings and queens to be able to excel and not necessarily having they may not have all the money in the world, but if you have a strong village who is capable of protecting the child from the negative environments that are in this world, that child will grow up to be successful. Everybody's definition of successful is different. Mine is just making sure um, you grow up not necessarily just happy, but you grow up with everything you needed. Like that's what a successful childhood and teenage life looks like. Growing up and not having to look over your shoulder because you're a part of a gang, or not having to look over your shoulder because you slinging drugs or you're doing this, that, and the third. You on a corner, whether you're a female or a dude, just doing all the things that can get you in some serious trouble. And I feel like that is what a successful upbringing looks like. That's what the result of being raised by a village and proper a home looks like. So that's something I feel like I had. I had a village of people who were always concerned about my well-being and always there for me, regardless of if my father was there or not. But most importantly, I had a mother who was beyond great at raising me, whether she had the help at the moment or not. She always made sure I had everything I needed and more if she had it. And that's just something I continue to thank God for, having a strong-willed mother who always positioned herself in the best place possible to make sure her child never needed or wanted for anything because that's just who she is. She was always willing to make sure I was at every game. My mom was a team mom for my football team, my basketball teams. Even when I played baseball for that short stint, she was there. She was always there and never made me feel like I missed anything when my father wasn't around. And that's just something I was beyond grateful for. But growing up, like because I had that strong village, because I had a strong-willed mother who was always around. Even the cheer mom, she was cheer mom too, so she was always at the practices. Because I had all those things at a young age, and never really hit me that my father wasn't there. Because I had uncles who was there nonstop, encouraging me and giving me coaching tips, even though they may not be the greatest at the sport when they play, but they were involved in that growth at a young age. And as I got older, um, not having a dad around, like you get to those teenage years, you kind of like are more you kind of realize it more. You kind of more attentive. You kind of realize, all right, my father not around. Even then, at a young age, I was going back and forth at a longer stint. And then when I was just coming over for the summers, you kind of realize that more, especially when at a certain point I couldn't come for the summer because I had football training.
Right.
So you kind of realize that there's a missing piece, and you're like, yo, this relationship that I once sought out, like it's not here. Like even at a young age, there was moments I wished I got birthday presents. There's moments I wish I got Christmas presents. And I'm not big on those things, but just receiving certain things from my father that I wasn't getting. Like after a while, I stopped looking for it. And as I got older, I resented you for it because I wasn't getting those things, not necessarily for the gift purpose, but it made me feel like forgotten at a certain point. Like my dad forgot me. Like my dad forgot about me. Like what have I done for my dad to forget about me? Like I'm just a kid at the moment, but like you can't help but start thinking like that. Like what could I have done better as a child? And that's not my role, but that's where your head goes. And as
Right.
teenage years go on, it go from being sad about it to being angry about it. And that's just something that developed over time, a certain level of anger to the point where you would call and I'm not trying to answer the phone because I could care less about talking to you. Like there was moments where I could literally feel the anger build up as soon as I see you call and I'm like, I don't want to talk to you. And that's just something that happened as I got older. And obviously we are where we are now because we've grown from it. But those moments, like I could really feel how angry internally I was, though I still saw it like I wish there was a relationship there, but there wasn't one there to have. So to try and force it, like that's what at that moment I felt like it was forced to try and force it. It just felt like something that was long gone from being able to happen.
Right. So just to kind of tie in the ends, I know Antoine kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, but of course, when I first transitioned in the first 3 years, because he wasn't yet in school yet, he would come south with me and spend the summers with me, or spend the 6 months with me, and then spend 6 months back home with his mother. And then, of course, once he started school, then the decision was made for him to start school in New Jersey. And so he had to navigate from, again, being have his years split, in his early years of being the ages of pretty much probably 1.5, 2 years old, 3, 4, before turning 5 and starting kindergarten in New Jersey. And then it was just the summers until, like he said, he got to the high school stage where it was just kind of camp time. And so definitely a tough transition. I always, you know, try my best to encourage people. Sometimes we make decisions, but we really need to take a moment to think about how those decisions affect not just yourself, but everybody involved. There were again reasons for my decisions, and then there were things that happened after that decision that I never knew would have happened. And so I encourage fathers, always be mindful. Mothers also always be mindful. Parents, be mindful as adults, the decisions you make, because more than anything, today, as we fast forward, I know my son was affected by me making a decision to move away because I was trying to figure life out. What was next for me? Didn't really feel like, from a career standpoint, I saw it where I was back home. And so I challenge fathers and parents to really always think about your child. Too often we make decisions that don't, involve our children. We make adult decisions and we exclude how it's going to affect the children that are involved. And so I'm blessed as a father to have a son who had an awesome village around him, from his godparents to his mother, of course, to even grandparents, uncles. Like he had an awesome group around him that was able to help him navigate. For many young athletes, many young players, sometimes it is though that very same situation that affects them in staying focused. So we went through our rocky point, like you said, points where you didn't want to talk. And so I would reach out, and there were times where I wouldn't get answers, and we would go periods, long periods where we didn't talk. And again, I have to give credit to your mother because she mediated through some of that where, I'm sure there were times she may have had to say, man, give your dad a call, or even me, her explaining to me what was going on, or at least keeping me abreast of different things that you were going through, even if you weren't able to articulate or talk to me about it. So as you get to high school, man, and again, dad hasn't been involved a lot in your career. Um, just things that you can remember. What were some thoughts, or how did it affect you, navigating through your high school career and positioning yourself to be able to continue your career on the college level? How did it some of that distance still affect you even into your teenage years?
I mean, like I kind of touched on, I felt myself becoming really angry and um, like just seeing that and seeing me not being my natural self. Like I'm naturally a loving and caring person, but when you would call, I feel myself get real angry and I've heard this saying like over time, anger becomes bitterness, and I just felt myself like at a certain point, it felt like I wasn't in control of it. Like you would call, and I would naturally feel angry. Um, so I felt that bitterness festering within myself, and I didn't like that because part of me still sought out a relationship with my father, and not having that and having that anger every time you would call, it hurt me. And because I was in control of how I felt, like I didn't want that to happen. I didn't want to feel that anymore. And it's a true testament to a quote my head coach brought when he first came along. Life is 10% what happens to you, 90% how you react. And for a while, I was reacting in a negative manner, though it was rightfully so in a way, and how I felt, how I reacted from there was my choice. And I didn't, though I was young, I don't know how to react to certain situations like that.
Right.
I didn't put myself in those positions. So not knowing how to maneuver that resulted in me becoming angry, me being starting to become bitter about certain situations, me being a little more tempered at times in certain other situations. Um, so as time went on, I was like, I don't want to feel like this no more. And it's a true testament to you get to make choices in life, like regardless of what happens to you, regardless of the situations you're presented, regardless of the hand you're given, it's your choice to deal with the hands that you're given. And you can choose to fold under pressure, or you can choose to play it. It's not going to be easy in playing those difficult hands, but you get to make that choice to forgive people when they've hurt you. You get to make the choice to keep pushing through when all odds are against you. You get the choice to push through when you may not have a father present in your life. So, but there are people out there. There are mentors. There are family members and men and women in your life who are going to be there to support you. So it's your choice to not dwell on what you don't have, but being appreciative of the things you do have and the people you do have in your corner who do support you.
That's good. That's good. And so something is always awesome as a father when you get to talk to your child and just hear the growth and maturity. I can remember the day we were kind of discussing this show probably a little over a month ago. And Antwan kind of discussed just where he finally got to that transition state. And I can remember you clearly saying these words, like you realized you were hurting yourself just as much. Like you were frustrated because, I wasn't there present, in person as a father, and didn't do everything that I should have been in place to do as a father there. But you were mature enough, here it is at 22 years old, to recognize it affected you. And so I think we discussed the quote that, holding bitterness for someone is like drinking poison, affecting, expecting them to die. And so I think just the one thing I want the young athlete to get from this, the young man, the young woman that's dealing with the parent being absent, whether it's a mother, whether it's a father not present, is that it is a place you have to get to that you're able to get through it, because ultimately it is going to affect you and the goals that you have with moving forward. So it is such a blessing. I thank God that I have a young, mature son that was able to navigate and get to a point that he recognized these things can impede even his forward movement in life. And so I believe in both of us growing. Fathers aren't always persistent. Parents aren't always persistent. You make the mistake, and then when your child or the situation comes where a child doesn't want to be bothered with you, some parents will quit and stop being persistent. So I think the fact that, I never allowed myself to get so consumed in, you know, my in place family, where I was in North Carolina, that I forgot about the fact that I had a son. So even though we had our gaps, I kept shooting darts periodically to where we're able to grow. And my son continued to grow. And he is just an awesome young man of God today, that he was able to open his heart to allow us to grow and be where we are today. And so Jew, we're at a different place today, and I believe there's so much growth to still happen. But what are some things that you feel like we're able to do as father and son, and just our communication, and things we're able to see as we open up the doors of communication today?
I feel like once we were able to get in a place and understanding that um, on both of our ends, that our relationship would never be what we once thought it could be, as far as being as close as we could have been and having that tight, close knit father son relationship and accepting where we are and just being able to grow from there. Is what allowed us to get into a place where we are now, where we're able to have more open conversations and at least as close as what it can be of what a father relationship should be, and just having that open source and understanding I'm a spitting image of you and how we choose to love people and how we carry ourselves and what we want out of life. Um, and just having that opportunity to do so is just something I'm beyond grateful for. And not only myself, but you as well for being persistent. Because you, like you said, a lot of parents give up when when their children decide they don't want a relationship and they choose to move on with their life. And you never gave up on that. So I'm proud of you for that. Like I'm proud of most of all, I'm proud of myself for seeing that I wasn't happy where I was, and me holding on to that anger was holding me back from being the person not only that I wanted to be, but once I got deeper in my relationship with God, I knew it was something He didn't want me to hold on to that bitterness and anger, because it was going to hold me back from growing and being the man He called me to be as well.
All right. And so the awesome thing, you touched on it real quick, that we're able to talk about everything, man. Like, and I think there's so many more doors to be open, but we're definitely able to talk about navigating early as young men, whether it's in relationships and things like that. And so many young men don't have that. So of course you move on into a relationship or marriage, you don't have that. And sometimes, because there's no manual for it, you're gonna strike out a few times before maybe you get it right. And so I asked, if you're talking to the young athlete, young man, young woman, they don't even have to be an athlete. Like, what are some things you tell a young person that maybe they don't have the situation we had, where we both, never completely closed the door. We kept fighting for it. But that young person is dealing with the absence of a parent. What are some things? I know you were never fully in this position, but what were some things you would tell the young player that you're blessed to be in their life, in navigating to still, stay encouraged and fight through, so that they don't let it consume them to a place that they may be quit towards fate, trying to reach the goals that they have as young athletes.
So to kind of point to the quote that you use that we've talked about and drinking poison and expecting it to hurt somebody else. You never know if that parent really seeks out a relationship. Like once they've given up or once they choose to not be around, you don't know if they care or not. So holding on to that bitterness and that anger for them, if they're not around and they're not reaching out to a parent to check on you or a family member to check on you, they're not gonna feel all the anger you have towards them. So holding on to that in the end is only hurting yourself. It's having that anger towards someone can fester up so bad to the point where now we talked about this earlier, bleeding on people who didn't cut you. Now you're
Correct.
bleeding on people who have not hurt you. You taking out all the anger you have to one specific person on people who didn't do it to you. So now not only are you lashing out on people who may truly care for you and are trying to be there for you, now you're becoming a person that you may not want to be. And you're subconsciously doing it because of that conscious anger that you have for somebody. So now you're growing into a person that may not have the potential that you once had. So now the more you hold on to that, you start to become that person that you don't want to be. All because you're subconsciously or you're consciously having a certain level of hate towards a parent or a person that chooses not to be in your life. They chose not to be that. So you choose to grow from it and show that they missing out. You choose to keep pushing forward. You are not your circumstances. And it doesn't just apply to having the lack thereof of a parent or a person in your life, but even the environment you grow up in. You are not your environment. You are not the situation you are in. It is a part of your journey. And yes, it is an opportunity to grow. And sometimes people crumble under that pressure of those growth opportunities. But you have the opportunity to grow from you have the opportunity to grow from this experience and truly use this to mold and shape the person that you want to be. You get to make choices in your life. That person made a choice to leave your life. All right, cool. Now double up on it and you choose the person you want to be to show them that they missing out on such an amazing and great person. Because the more you level up and the more you become even greater, and doing everything you set out to do, the more you'll forget about the person that was left out of your life, and you'll appreciate the people who chose to stay around. The more you appreciate yourself for never giving up, and you'll look back on it and you'll be more appreciative for the fact that they did leave. Because although you shouldn't depend on using that as fuel, you should have other reasons why. You could use that as a reason why to push yourself. Because at the end of the day, someone choosing to leave your life, it's a big experience. And not having them around could really affect you. But at the end of the day, if they made that choice, they gotta lie in it. And you make them lie in it by choosing to be the best version of yourself and forgiving them, not for them, but for yourself, so that you can move on and grow into the fullest potential of yourself.
That's good, man. Such awesome, great, mature information. And as a father, it makes me so proud of you, man, just to see your growth and how much you've grown, man, throughout the years, man. And again, it's definitely a blessing that been able to grow. It makes me so happy, man, is to be able to sit and build with my young adult son, man, watching what you've done as a leader in the sport, like keeping your head on straight. I think it was awesome you touched on, a quote that I don't know who's the originator of the quote again, but your coach used in regards to, life being 10%, what happens to you, and 90%, I think, am I right? What how
Yeah,
you how
90% how
you
you react.
how you react to it, and that ties into something I've used before, Will Smith video where he had, and Will Smith talked about fact versus responsibility. And in our case, it was a fact that did not grow up in the same town, or Juju did not grow up with his dad in the same town or in the home with them. But as he became older, it was at some point even as a young adult today, his responsibility to decide how he was going to live life or react to that situation. He easily could have used that as a crutch to make so many mistakes. He could have used that as a crutch to run to the streets to find that acceptance. He could have used it as a crutch to, to get caught up in substance abuse or whatever, so on and so on. But he decided to not be a person that used that excuse, but he made the right decisions to put himself in an awesome position he's in now as a coach, man. So thank you, Antwan, man, for joining me again, man. I hope that this information we've been able to offer to young people and just being transparent about our situation will help the other young athletes that they don't go through their high school or college careers just with that negative chip that distracts them or maybe push them into the streets or something because a parent is missing. I think you pose you're awesome example and just utilizing those people around you to keep you motivated and give you a reason why to keep trucking, and just your heart of forgiveness that as a young person, a teen, you were able to grow to get to a place of forgiveness and knowing, hey, this is still my father, and we loved each other enough to fight through those obstacles, to have the awesome growing relationship that I look to be, still awesome at whatever peak it reaches. We're just growing so much together, man. So thanks again, Antwan, for being with us. I'm gonna get into our last couple questions. We always ask every show, why is it important to have positive people in your circle?
It's very important for a few reasons. One of the biggest of them all, having positive people in your circle. You're gonna have moments where you're gonna be depleted from all the things you have to endure, and you need those positive people who are going to pour back into you and give you that sense of boost, so to speak, basically like a shock to get you back where you need to be. But also having that positive influence is going. You going if you have positive people in your circle, they're gonna push you to be the best version of yourself. They're never gonna put you in environments or situations that may be conflicting to the person you're trying to become. So having that positive reinforcement in your circle is very important to you growing and being the best version of yourself.
That's good. That's good. And last question, we always like to end with, who or what influences you the most in life?
Um, I'm gonna get to life, but coaching wise, just seeing how certain coaches I've interacted with. I was just gonna say college coaches, but I gotta give a shout out to all the coaches I've encountered even from a young age. Coach Ali, Coach Seal, um, I've had Coach Flex, Coach Alex, um, even going up uh, to now, Coach Flower, Coach Rob Flowers at Muhlenberg High School, Coach Sean Weaver at Frostburg State, and my head coach Isaac Collins. Just how they interact with players and how they really want the best for them and how they push you not only as a football player but outside of the sport to just be an all-around and well-rounded individual is just something that has truly influenced me to really want to do this coaching thing. And it was more recent, Coach Rob Flowers, Coach Isaac Collins, and Coach Weaver. But now that I think back on it, just all those genuine interactions I've had with coaches who've taken care of me when I needed it and being those positive reinforcements in my village, because I count those as people in my village now too, because they've helped me grow into the man that I am today. So I'm beyond grateful for those guys, and really having those positive influences on me to want to be like them in certain ways and how I coach and being genuine about all my interactions that I have with players and truly wanting nothing but the best for them, not only as players and being able to excel on the field, but just making wanting them to make the connections necessary to excel outside of the football thing. Because when it's done, and having those connections that are going to push you further in life, and being a well-rounded individual outside of your sport is of utmost importance. And that's all I want for my guys that I have currently, and even the guys I have coming in. But in life, I'd have to say my mother. Like I've seen my mother work tirelessly to provide for her family. And though I'm not a mother, But as a provider for a family, that's someone I look up to, and how to go out each day, regardless of how you feeling, and be able to provide for your family and never complain about it. Just because you love your family, just because you want to provide for your family and set them up in the best position possible to succeed in life. So when it comes to being a parent, like I truly look up to her. When it comes to life, I truly look up to her for always being there for others and being selfless in how she interacts. And regardless of how she may be feeling, like, of course, parents are going to have their times where they frustrated with life. But overall, I can never once say my mom complained about having to go to work when she wasn't feeling the best where with her having lupus. She always went to work, came back, took me to practice, stayed at practice the whole time, and did it all over again day after day without ever complaining to me about how hard it might have been. And now she's doing school, still working, helping me any way she can with that, and getting her degree next year around this time. Like, I'm beyond proud of my mother for all the work she's done, and I'm beyond grateful that God has given me such an amazing mother who has worked time and time again to make sure um, she her son is in the position that he is now. I'm like I said, I'm beyond grateful for that. And there's nothing more I can say. Like, she's in the, like, you almost feel for parents who are in certain situations where they're single moms, but you can't help but tip your hat off to parents who to moms who almost play both roles in certain situations. Like, now me and you have a relationship, but there's some guys who don't have a father figure in their life or a father in their life, and their mother is playing both roles. Those women are super, like, those are super women right there. That's their superpower, is being a mom, and I tip my hat off to them, because I can only imagine, like, I'm just living life as an adult now, but imagine having to live life as an adult and a single parent. Like,
Right,
you can't help but tip your hat off to people like that, and
right.
I can never say enough appreciation for the amount of love and, uh, like I said, appreciation I have for my mom. Like this, I just love that woman, like, to
That's
pieces.
that's good. That's good, man. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Um, just moment been able to have, man. So grateful for the growth I've been able to experience with my oldest son, and Antwan, and man, I just look forward to you doing big things already, seeing the impact you're able to grow and learn your position as a coach now, and already having opportunities to speak to young men. And I know again, he said it early, we recognize in these relationships how much we're alike. And so I think it's a blessing that at this early age of 22, he's able to sit down and just really be transparent with me. So again, I just encourage parents as a whole, and I always want to make it, the single mother like our situation was, but like even single fathers, like um we want to again. I want to double back and just tip my hat to those that have been in those positions that have to be strong and cover both ends. But also, I encourage the parent that's not present. Have made decisions. In our case, it was a relocation. It wasn't just a leaving and disappearing, but it was a relocation that put us at one point 11 hours away. Now you know the gap was closed once I moved to North Carolina to more to closer to like a 8 hour distance. But those parents that are not in the home or not in the same town, like, don't ever quit. Don't ever quit, because your child is going to need you. There are things about them that they'll be able to learn through your experiences. So I challenge you, I encourage you, I encourage the young athlete to always stay focused on your goals. Don't let your circumstance and your situation and even your house setup be the thing that derails you from reaching your goals. Be able to find those mentors, like Antwan talked about, all the awesome community and mentors and coaches he had. Like, you'll find even helping those people to help you as you grow, because at some point you're gonna end up probably possibly being a parent yourself. So I hope this show provides that resource for you to hear the experience. There's many awesome athletes across the country that have been able to still work hard and be successful. But I thank God for my son being another one of those awesome examples of staying the course, being focused, man. And thanks again, Antwan, for joining us, man.
All right, thank you for having me.
So, as I always say, it is good to be great in the sport you're playing, but it's even better to be great in life. So, I challenge you, take this information, share it, find a young athlete who's in a similar situation and may need to hear some of these words of encouragement to encourage them to keep pushing forward and stay focused on their goals. But I challenge you to keep joining us as we go out and up. Thank you for being with us, and we'll see you next episode.